Let's get spooky. This is our station Boo, where we explore the dark and mysterious corners of the world of horror, and we know that you are dying to listen.
And welcome to the Spooky and Kooky podcast of Earth Station Boo, where we talk all things horror. Introducing our haunted host with the most, we've got Lisa.
Hi, everybody.
We have Karen.
What's up, my horrorholics?
I am Shannon, and today we are joined by the one, the only, Mr. Mike Faber. Yay!
Greetings and salutations, everybody. It's so spooky to be here. How was that for one? How was that for an intro?
That is perfect. And that's staying in, just so you're aware.
That's fine. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it.
Alrighty. So before we get into a bigger boat or get back to shore, because we're going to be diving into some Jaws, we're going to go over some cool, fun things that are happening in the realm of horror.
Hey horrorholics, it's time for the Ghastly Report. Stay tuned for all the fun, spine-tingling news happening in horror today, from new releases to spooky events and so much more. So Lisa, what do we got on tap? I know things have kind of started to slow down a little bit, but...
Yes, a little bit. It's been a little bit of a repetitive, but I do have a couple things. One, there is a new Silent Hill movie out, and I'm still trying to find out where it is. It's supposed to be in honor of the Silent Hill video game fans. And as soon as I find out more, I'll be more than happy to put it on our group. Also, if you really like Legos like me, in August, there's going to be a Jaws Lego set. With the boat and the shark.
What?
And I don't care if it's $300 or whatever, but I'm going to buy it because I love Jaws.
And that is so perfect with the episode that we're doing.
Yeah. So those are the only two things I really have that aren't the same as yesterday not yesterday, last week, but that's what I got for this time.
Rock on, rock on. I did see someplace that because of screen test, the Crow movie is actually now backed up to not release until 2025.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
No, I get it, especially with how vocal Bill Skarsgård was with his dislike of the movie or the final edit or whatever. It is not surprising that they did that.
It works for me.
Yeah. If it gives us a better product, I'll wait.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of the time that we bullied when we raised our voices against the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and because they gave him like little teeny bitty eyes, and we're like, "What's that? That's not Sonic." They went back and reworked it, and he had like his big eyes again. I was like, "Yeah, that's Sonic."
Maybe Mr. Skarsgård got to know James O'Barr and he actually talked to the artist, which James O'Barr.
I don't think so, because a lot of the movie still isn't. It still isn't like quite on par with the comics. However, from what I read, and I think I read it on ihorror.com. I could be wrong. Could be wrong, but I think that's where I read it. Bill said that the way that they edited the ending was not how it was told to them. So it was kind of more of like they thought the movie was ending a different way than what the final edit was. So
interesting.
Yeah.
But it would be cool if you met James.
Oh, yes. Definitely. Honestly, I think if there's ever an adaptation, whoever the originator of the work is, they need to be heavy-handed in the production of the adaptation, simply because it is their intellectual property. And so what if you buy the rights for it you need to honor like what they created.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Personal opinion. You can
I
agree
agree
to
with that
disagree.
opinion.
All right. Karen, was there anything on the literary front? Or are we all kind of caught up on there?
We're all kind of caught up with there, but I did hear and read that they're making a new Hellboy movie.
Yes, I saw the trailer thing for it. I actually kind of dig it because it gives me more like comic vibes.
Yeah, it does.
Cool.
It gives you comic vibes. And it's going more towards horror
Mm-hmm.
than comedy.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. There's a streamer on Twitch. His name's JTech125. I was lurking in his stream and he started talking about it and he's like, I really like the Ron Perlman one. And he's like, I don't know why they're trying to make it so scary. And I'm like, because it technically is scary. The comics are actually horror. Like Hellboy is horror. like it was just very much more palatable with Ron Perlman. And then David Harmon, or no, I just said his last name wrong. But the guy who played in Stranger Things, Harper, that's it.
Yeah.
He did a decent job, but again, it was still kind of like on the Perlman side of things. It was more like the family friendly esque version of Hellboy. And I'm like, no, he's a demon creature from another dimension.
Yeah.
And you know,
like, how is that not horror?
I liked how he looked, like, how they made him look versus Ron Perlman. Because he had more of that, Gant look to his face, like in the comics. So I can't wait for the Crooked Man to see what's going to happen with that one.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. But I liked how I was able to be like, no, it's cool. This actually looks like it's more like true to the comics, which I'm okay with because it is horror. And he goes, oh, I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. We love J-Tech here, or at least I do. He's a good guy. All righty. Well, if that is kind of about it. If you go to DragonCon, if you're listening to this and you're going to DragonCon, the Urban Fantasy and the Horror Track both started releasing some of the panels that they will be doing this year. So do keep an eye out for that. It will be on their Facebook groups. I know we had Carol and Derek on a couple weeks ago. So do keep an eye out there. When we get closer to the con, we've actually had Derek scheduled to come back, and he's going to tell us all the cool, fun things that are happening at the Horror Track there. So, with all that being said, let's get into this episode. And that was the Ghastly Report. So come on, let's get spooky.
Alrighty, it's time that we dive in with big old Bruce. What are our initial thoughts on Jaws? Mike, you want to give us a start?
Sure. I'm, a little bit older than some of you. And, I was actually around when the movie first came out. And I remember the first time I saw it, I didn't go see it at the theaters because I was too much of a wuss. And I was also only 8 years old at the time. And so I saw it when it was on cable the first time. From that point on and watching it, I would not go into the ocean for at least 2 years because of it, because I was scared crapless. And it was a phenomena. The movie was amazing. Spielberg had such a limited, scope of what he could do with the shark that he left a lot of it to people's imaginations. And that's, I think, what was even scarier about the movie.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Lisa, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Well, my impression of Jaws was, it definitely scared me. One, I'm from Miami originally, so we were always near the ocean. Two, my dad took me to almost every scary movie when I was about 8, 9, 10. So Yeah, for a long time, I would not go into the water because I saw the dark water, thought the shark would come get me. It kept me away from the water for a long time. And when you're young like that, you think, oh, there's a big monster shark in there. So, of course, you're going to. As far as a scary movie, I guess for the time it was, for the limited budget, I think it was a wonderful thing that they could do with what they had to actually terrorize people and have such an effect. So, yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts on Jaws. Even though it did kind of give sharks a bad name, but it's still a fun movie to watch.
Aaron, what about you?
This movie literally kept me away from the ocean for a while. We were living in Japan, and every weekend we would go to the beach. And I was like, that dark thing right there that's swimming, well, that's a shark. The only way that I would go into the water is if somebody would come with me, and it had to be like, waist high. Because I'm like, what shark's gonna come up to me and try to eat me at waist high level? But yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I still watch the movie. I bought it, so it's like in my collection. There are some days that, sometimes when I go to the beach, I'm like, kind of iffy, kind of iffy.
I absolutely love the film. I actually watched it with my mom right after going to Universal when they had the Jaws ride. And I went on like a school trip of some sort, and we got on this ride, and I was sitting right on the edge, and like the edge where the shark would come out, because my mom knew I would like that. And a friend of mine happened to be sitting between me and my mom. She ended up basically underneath my mom because the shark scared the crap out of her. Like, my mom had claw marks down her arm from this girl. And we were in 5th grade.
That's hilarious.
She was absolutely terrified. I, on the other hand, was laughing. I thought it was so funny. I thought it was cool. We ended up watching the movie, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. It did give me a fear of the water. But I'm from Florida. I literally live 10 minutes from the beach. I grew up with knowing there were sharks in the water. And so I had already developed like a healthy respect for them. And so it didn't cause me to have any anxiety or fear of being in the water. But, to each their own. But I think the movie itself was actually a great movie, and it was fun to watch. Still is. But the real question, though, is it horror?
I think so. Yeah, I would think it's horror. It's,
Mm-hmm.
It's suspenseful. It's psychological horror more than a slasher film or because the creature, the shark, is obviously not human, and it is supposed to be a mindless beast that just feeds on nature naturally, and doesn't go, okay, I'm going to go out for revenge and kill all these people at the camp or whatever.
Well, I mean, the sequels do, but the original.
We're not talking about those damn sequels. No, we're not going to the one that followed the people down to the Bahamas so it can get, the revenge on the Brody family. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it.
It depends on people's perspective of it, because some people just think of it as just, a thriller, and other people think of it as a horror. For me, it is a psychological horror, because after watching it, I was like, I'm not going into the ocean for a while.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does make sense that it would be a horror because you got the blood, you got the monster, and we haven't really explored the oceans that much. I mean, we have, but not as much as we could have. So yeah, there might be that big giant shark in there that we don't know about. I mean, and we don't know if they're intelligent or not. So
yeah.
I mean,
I think it's definitely a horror film. But I've had a lot of people tell me, like, no, Jaws, that's not a horror film. It's not scary. And I'm sitting here going, but it's still horrific. Like, it's horrific that girl got eaten in the middle of the night, and the guy she was with didn't help her at all.
That's because he was drunk.
He was passed out on the beach,
It still means nothing. He was supposed to be keeping an eye out.
They were both drunk. I mean,
oh,
they shouldn't
yeah.
be
yeah.
Drunk.
Trust me, I understand that. But still.
And truthfully, the difference between the though the difference between the book and the movie, it's much more stunning in the movie than it was even in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the book, she didn't even know what happened to her until she reached down and saw that her bottom
But it
part
was
of her
gone.
leg was missing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where in the movie, the creature, the shark, grabs her and drags her, and around, and she's like screaming for help and all that type of thing. And the poor guy is passed out on the beach, the whole time. But she's, she grabs onto the bayou or whatever it is,
The dinghy.
the dinghy, and tries to hold on, but the shark then just comes back and just like totally destroys her.
Yeah. I mean, multiple parts of this movie are horrifying, like the little kid, or
The one on the
even
raft, yeah.
yeah. And even the way that the officials of the city treated the situation.
Yeah.
Like that's horrifying. That's scary. Like if I was a citizen there, I would be so mad at the mayor. I'd be so mad. Like I wouldn't be mad at the sheriff, because the sheriff can only do so much, but I'd be mad at the mayor for opening up those beaches knowing there was a man-eating shark in the water.
Oh, if this was today, lawsuit,
Oh
all the
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at the sheriff because I was like, he could get overridden like by anybody, apparently.
Yeah.
So I was like, y'all need to sue. Like when the mother came up to the sheriff, I was like, don't be smacking him. Smack the man.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the sheriff is always the authority figure, and that's the one you always turn to. But he in both the book and the movie, he wanted to close the beaches, and and so it was interesting. I've actually been to Martha's Vineyard where they filmed it, and
cool.
and it's exactly what you picture, the little tiny towns, with the beach communities, and it's just, they live and breathe for the holiday season. Not so much now because that's the home of the ultra rich and everything like that. But back then it was,
Maybe
you
Josh should go
survived.
visit.
Yeah, exactly.
For the orcas,
And-
I don't know.
I know. Well, the orcas are taking care of the yachts anyway, so it's okay.
But yeah, speaking of like the book versus the movie, I think the way that they actually like did the movie based off of the book was really great, to be honest. I think there was a lot of things in the book that were almost unnecessary for the full story that they were able to just wipe away and made it, and took it out for the movie, and it was perfection. Like there was no need for the affair. There was no need for the mafia.
Well, I
No.
understood the mafia a little bit because me and my sister-in-law was talking about it. She was like, it's in, Nantucket, all that, where, they get their money from tourism. Yeah, I could see the mafia be there for that money.
Well, it's interesting because in the movie, it takes place on an island, Amity, and which is supposed to be Martha's Vineyard, and where in the book, Amity is part of Long Island. It's a beach community, and it's not that far from New York City. It's not that far from the mob, so hence the mafia popping up. And I was not surprised at all.
I wasn't surprised, but it did not play a massive role in the plot. Like it pushed a little bit for why they kept trying to keep things open. But at the end of the day, you could have written it a different way and it would have still gotten the same point across.
Right.
Oh, very much so.
So like to me, it was almost a little unnecessary. So I was kind of glad that in the movie, they didn't have that portion. And again, like the affair.
Oh,
the affair was
I thought
not
was
needed.
a total waste.
Yeah.
It was a subplot in the book that was just like, why? Why? There was no reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was like some backstories I didn't much care for. I'm like, I don't care about the deputy's backstory. I really don't. I don't care about the wife's backstory. Why?
I felt like a lot of like the wife's backstory was to make her affair seem important. And I'm like, I don't get why you had to push that portion of it. I can understand maybe like having her be somebody who grew up there so she can tell her husband, hey, like, I get why they're really trying to push to stay open. But in the movie, neither of them were from there.
Mm-mm.
Like that was his retirement place. That was to get him out of the city.
Because he was a New York City cop before this.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in his retirement, he was going to work at the beach community just to chill. And,
Yeah.
look what happened.
Yeah, I'm chilling.
So chill. So chill. Lisa, what about you when it comes to like the book versus the film?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. The mafia really was a little bit unnecessary. I mean, I understand the point of it, and the affair really, I mean, unless there was a little bit more dynamic to it, there might have explained, but I liked the book. I definitely think the movie made some of the things a lot more dramatic to help the flow of the movie. It was kind of, I read it when I was younger and then I listened to it again. And really, to tell you the truth, I think I like the movie better. And I never say that about books.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never say it was just kind of long and draggy for me. I mean, though there was one point in the book where he did kind of make a mention that the shark was intelligent, more than intelligent, a couple times that I remembered, which I kind of like that. But then off on the people and everything.
Yeah, I would agree with you on the book was definitely not as good as the movie. There were parts of the book
sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like there were parts of the book that were fantastic. Like I actually really liked Quint in the book a little bit more than I did Quint in the movie, but I think that's also because Quint didn't get as much time in the movie compared to the book. Like in the book, you have like a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more backstory to him. I don't know.
A little bit, but I loved Robert Shaw's portrayal of Quint in the movie.
Oh yeah,
Robert Shaw did amazing.
Oh, yes. And the stories, him and Richard Dreyfuss's character were going back and forth when they were getting drunk on the boat that night was just amazing. And the story he told about World War II, about, the Indianapolis. And it was just amazing to, hear the stories. And I, as a little kid watching the movie, I actually looked it up. I went to the library and found out that was all true stories.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. And it always put a chill down my back, hearing the story and everything. And then, of course, Richard Dreyfuss's character showing, this is the scar where, so-and-so ripped my heart out, in high school. And it was just awesome.
Which honestly, I think Richard did an amazing job playing Hopper. I think he made him exactly what he needed to be that he wasn't in the book. Like in the book, he was kind of like a know-it-all, but he wasn't that big of a know-it-all. But in the movie, he had that like pompous air about him that like really drove home that point. And it made you want to kind of dislike him a little bit. Like, calm your tits. Like, seriously, chill. Like, you're a little much here, home skillet, and you're short compared to everybody else. So, down.
Like, you're a chihuahua.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely little dog syndrome.
Oh, big time. And I felt like, though, I liked the characters a little bit more in the movie than I did in the book.
Yeah.
And everything.
I feel like I feel like they were fleshed out more.
Yeah. I did like Brody more in the book, because, he was matter of fact. He, was like, what do we got? This is what we have. And you could feel the relationships he has with everybody on the island and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree to that.
Yeah.
Hmm. So going off of all of this, that we decided that this is better than the book. It's
yeah.
also the first summer blockbuster. It
Oh,
had
very much so.
over 67 million people go see it in 1975. How do we think that this movie has then changed the game for film?
When it first came out, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is a great movie," and then we're not going to go swimming.
Mhm.
We're not.
And
And
this
then there
is
was like a lot of, you know, people calling like, "Oh my God, there's a shark! There's a shark!" A lot of, the whole hysteria. Um, for me, it changed the game of the special effects because that was like my really first movie that had an animatronic horror element to it, that I really enjoyed. Um,
Which was
'Cause
sadly broken most of the filming.
and I was
Yeah.
like, well, as a kid, I'm like, how did they get the shark to do that? I mean, then I realized, growing up, it's a puppet. Aw.
Mhm.
But for me, that the special effects kind of changed my perspective on the industry of special effects because I'm like, if you could create a monster like this, there shouldn't be anything stopping you from creating anything you want, just using practical effects. I say that, and
Yeah, there was no CGI back then,
Yeah, there was no
folks.
CGI.
Thank goodness.
with the people, whatever they want to do.
Yep.
Lisa, what did you want to add?
It changed definitely the way that film was made as far as like Karen was saying, special effects, the fact that this was one of the first animatronic, even if it did not work half the time, still it was really cool because it's like it actually took you on an adventure and you weren't in a studio the whole time.
Mhm.
So I think that added more expansion on to make more adventure and use more areas to film and everything. And it was all in all a good story, and it made a lot of people afraid of the water for a long time. So
That it did.
definitely upped it kind of upped the game a little bit more in the horror industry as far as monsters were concerned. I mean, even if it's just a shark, it still was something we didn't know a lot about back then. So
I mean,
unless
even
you
to this day, we still don't know that much about sharks, even though we claim to know.
Hey, all I know is I really enjoyed following Lydia around while she had her tracker. That was kind of cool.
Mhm.
She was cute.
Oh my God.
I'll let you stick with that one.
So, Mike, you said you remember like it coming out. What do you remember about like the way people talked about the movie?
Oh, it was
Like the
everywhere.
excitement.
Yeah.
It was Jaws this, Jaws that. Did you see Jaws? Oh, you're too young to be watching a movie like this, kid, type thing. And it was always interesting that we got, the buzz around it and people. This was one of those movies, back then they didn't have the big multiplexes and everything. They maybe had one or two theaters, screens at a theater, and people were lining up down the block for weeks and weeks and weeks to be able to see this movie. It was pretty amazing and everything. It was great to be able to see something like that. And, it was at the movies for probably close to 6 months. That's how popular it
Wow.
was. This is not, an era when movies just disappeared after 3 weeks, 4 weeks. This movies, you know, were there for a long time. Hell, Star Wars, when it came out, was at our local movie theater for over a year. You know,
Oh
they
wow.
and now for the 74th week, Star Wars, type thing, and it's still sold out. So, and Jaws was the precursor for that, which was just amazing.
Yeah, I think it really changed the game. But much like how back when films first started, it especially horror films, it was the thrill of it. It was the excitement from it. It was the, ooh, what are we going to see? There was that excitement, that normal like human curiosity that just kind of blossoms. And it happens every once in a while where like things kind of die down, kind of get a little bit boring, and then something happens that triggers that fascination that we as humanity has with the unknown. And I think that's kind of cool how like you can see this time and time again with how things get revolutionized. And I think Jaws did that, not just for cinema, but for horror also. Because soon after that, you kind of had a bit of a horror renaissance with the start of the slasher films and all that kind of fun stuff. So
Yeah, totally makes sense. But you also have to remember this movie also made Steven Spielberg a household name.
yeah, this was his
Nobody
second film.
had ever heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah, second film, and actually, I think
And
his
his
both
first
of-
success.
yeah, his first success. But I think both of his first films were horror films,
Yes.
which I think is interesting because you don't think of Steven Spielberg as a horror director.
Nope, not at all. And that's the cool thing about this movie. It put him on the map, but it also put, oh, sharks, let's add them now up with Frankenstein, Wolfman, and Mummy and everything.
It's
Now we
just a
have
new creature
Bruce.
feature.
Exactly.
New creature feature.
Exactly. And how many rip-offs of this were there after that?
Still to this day, how many
Yeah.
offs are there under Paris?
Well, exactly. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And like we've said, it sparked the fear of the water and or sharks. Like on here, all of y'all have said, yeah, I didn't want to go back in the water after that. I, on the other hand, I'm like, let's go. Maybe I can see one and poke it.
As
But
it's dragging you under.
yeah, sure, why not?
Exactly.
I mean, I walked into its house, so I feel like it's fair if I get munched on.
Okay.
But how many people do we know who that's the case? I feel like almost everybody I know, that is the case. Like their whole reason of being afraid of the water stemmed from Jaws.
No, totally understand that. It's so many people had the phobia, and even people who weren't even alive when that came out are still phobic of the water because Jaws.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty crazy with that.
Jaws.
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 Huge fear unlocked.
And and then of course, ever since then, anytime, you're walking into a dark room, do 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 do. And that's John Williams music right there.
Oh yeah. No, John Williams, his impact in cinema is otherworldly. I mean, I know friends who we just sit there and we just jam out like to John Williams music because we love it. Like it's all so good. But I actually love the story behind the John Williams in this movie. He had no direction on what kind of music to make, and he just made what he felt would work for the film. And Steven even kind of like bucked up against him a little bit, and he goes, "No, dude, I promise it's going to work." And they put it in, and they're like, "Oh, this is gold." So this music, like that, da 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 da, is only when there actually is a shark. Any other time in the film where there's like, you think the shark might come up and like get somebody, if that music isn't playing, the shark's not there.
You're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like you could be swimming and say, I'm fine. I don't hear the music. I'm cool.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly. But special effects did actually make and break this. Lisa, do you want to kind of like dive into that since it is your forte?
Okay, well, first I have some fun facts. Okay, first of all, Bruce started out as a life-size dried. I'm reading my notes that I wrote down. As a life-size dried out museum specimen. That's where they got the example from him to make. Also, he's 25 feet long and 4.5 tons.
Ooh.
And yeah,
big boy.
that's a and they also had to keep him in attack mode on his face all the time because they didn't really. Every time they had the hinges start to work, it would malfunction, and a couple of people almost lost a couple limbs. And he had 2 sets of teeth that they used for the film. One, the regular one where you saw him like breaching and all that good stuff, and also the one where you saw when Quint was getting, devoured. That was a whole nother set so that he wouldn't get hurt too badly. Also, they had to use a couple of barrels to keep him floating because he sank like about 3 times. But as far as the special effects, he was one of the first animatronic special effects that was actually semi-successful. I mean, they restored him about 5 years ago, and he's in the museum somewhere. I can't remember what museum. But
didn't he malfunction also right after they restored him?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Like, no, I'm not gonna work.
Spit Robert Shaw pretty good. Yeah, but there's a lot of mythos about animatronic animals, which one day we'll talk about. But Bruce being for one of the first animatronic animals and stuff of his time, it was pretty good for what it was. And the fact that they used a real shark as an example, I thought it gave it more of a realistic effect. Even now we can look at it and go, ha ha ha, but it still looks more like a great white shark than some of the CGI stuff that we see.
So there was a scene in the movie that actually got filmed in Steven Spielberg's pool.
Really?
And it was the scene where the head popped up out of the boat in front of Richard Dreyfuss's character. They used his stunt double his stunt double or a friend to refilm it because they redid the head because Steven didn't think it looked good enough. And so they redid it in his pool. And that's what actually made the final cut.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's when you know you have no budget. You film it in your pool.
No, that's when you know you got a really good director whose end goal is having a pristine end product. When he's willing to sacrifice his own pool to build a set, to film something underwater so you get the right thing. And he paid for all of that too, because he was already over budget. And they're like, nope, like you don't get anything you want, you got to pay for it. And he's like, all right, let's go use my pool. Let's go throw that stuff in there and let's get back to it.
It also means that, you didn't have the budget for it, so you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, the dedication to make sure like that scene was perfect and actually had the scare that he wanted. Because this was actually, I think, after they did like a test screening and the audience didn't jump the way he wanted them to jump. And so they like refilmed it all. So
Totally makes sense. There's a lot of that during filming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And you'd be surprised, what's been filmed in people's bathtubs or people's swimming pools.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this movie has a lasting effect. We're coming up on the 50th anniversary next year.
Yeah,
and this movie still holds up to this day, and it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And if you haven't seen this movie, folks, what rock have you been living under? You're listening to a horror podcast, this should be right up your wheelhouse.
Hey, I had a friend who never saw Jaws until like a few years ago because she's not into horror. She was like, I can't do it. Horror this is too scary. And she finally sat down and watched Jaws, and she was like, "That's actually pretty good." I wasn't as terrified as I thought I was going to be, but I don't want to go to the ocean right now. But that was pretty good.
It's one of the few horror movies my mom will watch, but she loves this one. She's like, "Oh yeah, no, I don't mind watching Jaws. Jaws is good. I like that."
Mm-mm.
But I think it's more of like because it is more of like a psychological horror. It's more of like the nature type thing. So
well. It's interesting because Quint is the only one who you actually see get eaten by the shark.
Yeah.
And the other two are, the other three or four that you see, the dog disappears because it got eaten by the shark. You don't see that. The little boy on the raft, you see a splurt of blood, but you don't see him get eaten. Even the woman at the very beginning, you don't. And, then
That
you
was just because
also,
Bruce wasn't working.
well, exactly. But I think it was better well done that way.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's all, and that's what I love about the old horror movies is you don't see a lot of it because a lot of it's in your head.
Yeah.
And
There was
I
a
think,
dog that got eaten?
yeah,
Yeah, there's a small scene. It's kind of like it's while they're trying to figure out what happened to the woman.
Oh, because I don't remember that part, and I just
no,
watched it again.
I thought it was right before the little boy got eaten because the dog was playing in the water. He was kept on throwing the ball out for the dog to catch in the water,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the dog disappears. They don't, he's because everyone's focusing on the little boy, and everyone's yelling shark, shark, and
I thought the
everyone's
dog ran
running.
away, to be
Yeah,
honest.
but it was pretty obvious,
I
except
believe
for the Karen, but it's okay.
the dog ran away like Karen.
Mhm.
I believe the shark did not munch on the puppy dog.
Oh no.
I
He
choose
became a
to believe that.
doggy snack, so it's okay.
Shh.
Doggy snack.
No doggy snacks. Not unless you're planning on giving them snacks.
Mhm. He became a true Scooby snack. It's okay.
No.
Yes. Let the dark humor live.
Damn straight.
All right. So we all agree that this movie is fantastic. And I think something that is kind of cool with this film is that it has literally been a catalyst for creature features in our modern era, as well as with the plethora of shark movies that has happened since. So, what is your guys' take on the impact Jaws had on other shark films and creature features?
I guess, it's interesting because the legacy of this film carries on 50 years later. It had a handful of sequels, which each one got worse and worse and worse. And it was but it also led into, you know, even movies over the last year, Jason Statham wouldn't have a job right now if it wasn't for big sharks. And so it's just pretty amazing. You even got to see, Samuel L. Jackson take on a shark. And, it just all depends. And, you always go, all right, who's the next one to get it? And none of them have lived up to Jaws. And that's the thing.
I agree with you on that.
And the sharks now get bigger and bigger and bigger, or tornado-y and tornado-y and tornado-y.
Or get spliced into Sharktopus.
Exactly. So, I'll never look at it. I'll never look at a tornado the same way ever again after, Thanks, sci-fi.
Oh, my mom loves that movie. She was like, Sharknado.
I don't know. I live in Florida where we have a lake with 10,000 plus alligators that when we have hurricanes get picked up and flown about. So that's just a Tuesday.
No, you just call that Tuesday in Florida. Okay, got it.
We just call that Tuesday. But Karen, what about you? What do you think about it all?
I mean, there will never be another creature feature like Jaws ever. Because of the fact, like any shark movie, I've seen almost a handful of shark movies, more than a handful of shark movies. And I'm like, it's just not the same. It's not the same at all. I mean, like I said, there's a Sharktopus, Shark Side of the Moon, Sharknado, Sand Shark, Ghost Shark, Shark this, Shark that. And there's it's not, there's not going to be another Jaws.
Mm-mm.
Just because the sharks keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you have a megalodon. It's just, no. No. And I made my sister-in-law watch Megalodon with me. And she was like, that is impossible. And she's a science teacher. And she's like, that is impossible. What is going on? Who approved this movie? This is not Jaws. I was like, I know. So she has lots to say about like shark movies that we watch together. She's like, this is bad. Why are you making me watch this?
Lisa, what about you?
Well, I will say, if it wasn't for Jaws, I wouldn't have bigger creatures to play with, like to try to build and everything. It did. And also it was really cool because like Roger Corman made a whole lot like Sharktopus, sand sharks. Even though they're not as good as Jaws, there's just something fascinating about it. And then I have to call out to one of my friends, Brett Kelly. He made this one. The first Megalodon shark movie was called Jurassic Shark, which how on earth a Megalodon could get these two girls in 2 feet of water, I don't know. But hey, it was fun to watch. So, yeah, sharks seem to be like popular and everything. And there's all kinds of different, but yeah, they're not as good as Jaws. But I have a huge shark movie collection, but it also got me into conservation of sharks with some of my friends who are marine biologists, which it was kind of cool because then you're like, no, that's not really real. Let's actually find out what these creatures are about. So I'll say it kind of opened that door up to a lot of people. My sister, especially, who's a marine biologist. So yeah, it did good and bad.
It definitely did strike the fear into a lot of people. And now there is a horrible stereotype of sharks that does get perpetuated with every shark film that is made afterwards. But I do like the fact that there is almost like a respect from a lot of them where they're paying homage to Jaws. Because without Jaws, you wouldn't have this.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And, like the Meg and the Meg 2, a lot of people, like, they knock it because of the CGI and like all that kind of stuff. But when you look at the actual storytelling, I think it's almost like a marry of Jaws and Jurassic Park, the way that it's told. But I kind of dig it. Like, I like how they have paid homage to Jaws and just like little things, like the way the shark looks, the way the shark does attack, like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, nothing is as good as Jaws is. And the thing is, I think Bruce had 5 minutes in the entire movie total, something like that.
Yeah, just about.
And that's amazing. Star of the show is only there for 5 minutes, and he did great for those 5 minutes. But let's go ahead and kind of start wrapping this up a little bit. Let's talk on our final thoughts. What is our final thoughts? And let's give a skull rating for the movie. And we go up to five skulls. Karen, do you want to start us off?
Well, for number one, I will always watch Jaws over any other like shark movie, unless my mom wants to watch something else. I'll bend for my mother because my mother was the one that got me into horror movies when she shouldn't have at the age of 4. Okay, Faces of Death, y'all, zombie movies and stuff like that. There will never be another Jaws, and if someone somewhere somehow does it, I would be rather impressed, and they'll be like on the pinnacle of creature feature makers. Because of the puppetry, because of the psychological fear, because of the characters, I would give this movie 5 skulls. The puppetry alone, just you get 5 minutes of like, this shark of Bruce. He's there, but you get to finally see him for those 5 minutes. You're like, damn, that's some good puppetry work.
Lisa, what about you?
I would definitely give it a 5 skulls. It made way for making bigger and better creatures animatronically. It definitely impacted me as far as creature features. And definitely, I would watch Jaws anytime. I actually watch it every Shark Week. And sometimes when it's not Shark Week, because I love the movie, I like showing it to people who've never seen it before. Because it's like something it's so different. And like Mike was saying, you see it, but your imagination is like, what is that under the water? The dark water kind of keeps it like mysterious. So yeah, I definitely give it a 5 skulls and definitely recommend it. So watch it.
Mike?
I would give this five skulls without a doubt. This laid the groundwork with so much to follow. And like Lisa was saying, it is, laid the groundwork for so much to follow, not just, you know, special effects wise, but also psychologically. And, this was a pure masterpiece. I watch it, try to at least see it at least once a year, if not more. And it's like whenever I used to flip channels when I had cable, if Jaws was on, boom, I'm there, no matter where they are in the movie. It could be the last 15 minutes, it could be the whole thing. I'm there. I'm going to be watching it, the rest of my day. Oh, I have to go to the store. I have to go see somebody, meet a friend. Hey, I'm going to be late. Jaws is on, it's one of those things. And, maybe I saw it at a young age and it impressed me, made too much impressions on me, than I should have. But I loved it. And I am, Roy Schneider as Brody was just amazing, and then the other two, having Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw, this was just a very well-rounded cast. And I am so glad they did not carry anything about the affair into the movie or anything with the mafia. This movie is just a perfect film for that type of thing. And, and it's been studied so much. And, you know, it's like a nice fine onion. You just unwrap it and see all the different levels to it. And it's just great.
Yeah. No, I agree with all of you guys. This is definitely a 5 skull film. One, it is absolutely timeless. Two, it broke away for so many things, and not just in the genre of horror, but in cinema as a whole, in storytelling, and in a lot of different ways, and being the breakout for so many people as well. I just think, honestly, there's not much about this film that I don't like. And even the things that I don't like, it's more like personal taste. It's not like an actual like critique. It's like, oh, I might not have done that, but that's just like a me thing. It's not a actual like anything else. Like it didn't hinder the movie's success. It didn't hinder the storytelling. It's just like a personal preference. Like, yeah, I don't think he should have worn a blue jacket. That kind of deal. But yeah, this movie as a whole, it knocked it out of the park. So 5 skulls. We all gave it 5 skulls. So
I just found out there was like more Jaws after Jaws 3.
mhm.
How did I miss the other two? Last two.
We don't talk about the other two.
Okay.
No, ixnay on the oxnay, osnay, free.
But now it is time for my favorite part of our episode when we have a guest. It's the electric chair.
Wait, no, don't tie me down. Oh, no.
Let's see if Mike Faber can survive the electric chair. I mean, most have, but he might not. You never know.
Of course.
You never know.
I'm wearing rubber soles. I think I have a good shot to make it.
Fingers crossed. So the first question: who is your favorite horror villain?
Oh, horror villain. Well, it also depends on who you look as a villain. Because sometimes who you think is the villain is sometimes the most sympathetic character in the film.
Trying to weasel your way out of this question by throwing some like mind twisting stuff is not going to work here.
Hey man, sometimes somebody's villain, somebody else's hero.
Exactly. I know many people like Freddy Krueger as a hero or Jason as, so For me, my favorite though has to go back. It has to be Dracula, the Count himself.
Classic.
Bela Lugosi as, the Count. He was so manipulative, so suave, but he was so evil. He did not have a good bone in his body.
No?
And, but, he had the look, he had the eyes. It was pretty amazing.
Okay. Now we're going to do Kiss, Marry, Kill horror edition.
Okay.
And this is actually even special horror edition. This is a Jaws edition, since you are on the Jaws episode.
hmm
Your Kiss, Marry, Kill options are Sheriff Brody, Hopper, and Quint.
Well, I would marry Brody anytime, Roy Schneider, that's just a given. And, rotten hell, you son of a, it's just awesome. He's just an awesome character, and I would feel safe with him at night. It would be okay. It would be okay with that. Kiss, it would have to be Hooper. The beard and everything. Richard Dreyfuss is kind of adorable in it, type thing.
He is.
Too bad he turned out to be a psycho, but that's okay. And Kill has to be Quint. He's just too much of an old curmudgeon. Let me tell you, son, when I have the stories to tell you, and I have the scars to show for it. So yeah, it'd be Quint.
Good choices.
About that. I like Quint.
Oh, I don't dislike any of them, but I had to choose one of them. I throw him to the shark.
I wouldn't kill him. I'll
Who would you kill?
probably switch him and Hooper out.
Okay.
Well, okay. I liked Hooper's super boat though. That was pretty cool with the lights on the bottom and everything.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. All right. And the last but not least, when it comes to these questions, what is your horror hot take?
What do you mean by hot take?
So, your unpopular opinion in the realms of horror.
I'm not a fan of modern horror, is going to be my hot take on it. I'm not a big fan of slasher porn, and I'm more of the psychological person, and things like Jaws or Alfred Hitchcock or such. I don't need to see, Human Centipede, or I don't need to see Saw, or items like that. It's just like, yeah, no, I'd rather it live. I gave up watching like a lot of like Freddy Krueger after Dream Warriors or Freddy versus Jason and stuff. It's just like, Rob Zombie ruined a lot of my favorites over the years. So, he even ruined the Munsters for me, so it's like, so, a lot of that stuff, and I know a lot of it's very popular with a lot of people, but for me, if I'm going to watch a horror movie, I'd rather watch a Hammer horror, or I'd rather watch, something from the 1930s or 40s. Abbott, I loved when I showed my son Abbott and Costello meets, Frankenstein. It's just, that was just awesome to be able to do. And, for me to do that, and I'm a huge monster fan. I love the Blob. I love, I even love the Creeping Terror. That's how, much I am, which is one of the worst movies ever. So, if you ever want to see an Afghan rug attack the town, it's pretty awesome. So,
It's called The Creeping Terror.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on Creature Feature when I was like 11.
And it ate people through its belly or something like that. And it just,
Right.
and it was funny because it's an all voiceover movie, because the original sound for it was stolen by the original sound guy because he wasn't getting paid, and he took it. And
That's fair.
they never found it. So they had to do a voiceover over the whole movie. That's how bad of a movie it is. You should watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000.
I was going to say, I think I saw that on Mystery Science Theater. I'm like, I know
classic.
I've seen that film, but I know I didn't see it the way I should have.
No,
Actually, I think I saw it the perfect way to watch it.
Oh yeah. So
Honestly, Mystery Science Theater is the best for those like super like low grade horror movies that you're like,
Yeah.
this is
Mhm.
it's so bad it's funny.
Oh yeah.
But when you have that commentary throughout
And
the film,
I
it
love
works.
monster movies where you see the monsters eating the people, like the Blob or something
Mhm.
like that, and it's awesome to see. And for me, this movie was such a piece of whatever that it was even bad for that. So it's pretty awesome.
Okay, so the movie's on Tubi, so I guess I'll watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I can't wait to hear what you think of it. You're
It's
going to
like,
go, damn you, Faber,
movie,
for
I'm so
making me watch this one. I guess I know what your next episode's going to be.
We're probably gonna have to do an episode of the worst horror movie I ever saw.
Yeah.
It might actually need to be a series.
Yes,
Yes, I think I agree with that.
I definitely agree.
Well, I dare say, Mike, you did make it. You did survive the electric chair.
Thank God.
Another one made it. Look out in the mail. You'll get a sticker.
Yay,
All right.
Hey,
But our listeners, folks, thank you so much. We do have a question for you, though. Did Jaws keep you out of the water? And what is your favorite scene in this classic movie? We want to know. Tell us. You can tell us on our social media, and we can continue this conversation. We are on Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, and we have an amazing Facebook group. So please come join us there. We can continue to chit chat about it all. You can also subscribe, rate, and like and share all the things on for the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. So Apple, Google, Spotify, Podbean. I saw that we were just on, and we are on YouTube. Yay!
Yay.
But guess what? You can follow all of us individually as well if you really liked our specific take on things. So, Mike, where can they find you?
Yes, Mike, what can they stalk you at?
Where can you stalk me at? Please find me. I am up on Facebook as Mike Faber. I am most social medias. I'm either Mike Faber or Mike Faber 67. You could also find me as part of the ESO Network, which is a geek podcast network that is your site for all things geek. I host the Earth Station Who podcast, and I produce and announce for the Tales from Hollywoodland podcast. And all those can be found anywhere you find podcasts. Our shows are even there. So it's always a good thing. ESO goes to cons. We go to different shows, and we got some great folks up there. And hopefully, you might be hearing these fine folks up there someday.
Yeah. Lisa, where can they find you?
well, you can find me on Facebook as Lisa Zhen Shin. You can find me on Instagram as Shin Lisa. And you can find me also on Threads. Pretty easy to get to. You can find me all over those social medias.
Karen, what about you?
Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok.
Awesome. And you can find me, Shannon, at Spill TY Media Mind on all the things. But before we go, we want to thank you guys, listeners. We really do appreciate all your love and support and listening to this podcast. Mike, thank you again for coming on to this podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure. We can't wait to have you on again soon.
Anytime you guys need a body to fill in, just don't put me in the electric chair again. That was kind of scary.
We might throw another Kiss, Marry, Kill in there randomly.
Oh, that's easy. Just don't tell my wife. It's okay. What she doesn't know never hurts her.
Hey, she can join in if she would like.
That's a personal thing, so it's okay. There you go.
But thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate you and your support. So stay spooky, our lovely little ghouls. Toodles.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.
And this has been the Spooky and Kooky podcast of Earth Station. Boo.